three Suranas on the dais for a sterling achievement. A very special occasion with two birthdays. Of course, 25th institutional birthday is very important. But the birthday of Mrs. Surana, and the two are twinned and intertwined. One is not possible without the other. And I think all the three Suranas have put in their blood, sweat and tears endlessly, and they deserve very, very special congratulations, because after all, to be able to make a claim on the invitation card as the world's largest moot court program is an amazing fact. And it has been, of course, a great journey for them of training impressionable young minds in diverse facets of the art of advocacy. Professor Srijit, Honorable Vice Chancellors in the audience, learned senior advocates, ladies and gentlemen, but above all, the students here, particularly because I was asked to address on what has been the forte of the Surana Foundation, mooting, which I prefer to call the art of advocacy. And to hone your skills in the art of advocacy, the best and the most important vehicle which the Suranas have honed to perfection is mooting. In our times, these opportunities were very limited. Exposure, a competitive platform, these were very, very much more limited. And the mooting process has not only evolved tremendously from our times, but is also a very interesting reflection of what people take as interchangeable terms. A good lawyer and a good advocate, whereas the two are actually different. To be one is not necessarily to be the other. To be a good advocate is not necessarily to be a good lawyer, and vice versa. Historically, 2 + 1, 3 examples come to mind. All three great, all-time greats, but they illustrate and vivify the point I am making. Setalvad Jr., or for that matter his father, Sir Chimanlal, both great lawyers. They would be perfect in the precision and the diligence and the depth of each point, but not necessarily very great advocates. The second Setalvad Jr., C.K. Daftari, was the exact opposite. Not necessarily a great lawyer in terms of erudition and wisdom, but a remarkable advocate. Maximum output with minimum work was his credo. He's the one, the two very, these are all, must be known to many of you, these are all famous. He's the one who, arguing before Justice Hidayatullah on a gambling act matter, was asked by Justice Hidayatullah, but Mr. Daftari, what do you exactly mean by gambling? There's no proper definition in this act. Without a wink, he said, well, it's very difficult, but it's possibly either like the elephant whom you cannot see but you recognize and feel. But more appropriately, my lords, it is perhaps what we do on Mondays and Fridays. Those days only Mondays and Fridays are miscellaneous matters. Before your lordship's benches. He's also the person who said, arguing a liquor matter, my lords, what is a republic without a pub? It's only a relic. That's advocacy for you. A remarkable amalgamation of the Setalvad and the Daftari was Nani Palkiwala. One of the rare amalgams, very deep knowledge of law, but remarkable advocacy. How he fashioned the basic structure doctrine, not the doctrine itself, but how he explained it, how he argued it. I had not joined the profession then, so I was bereft of the pleasure of being in court. But there are things written about how he developed the questions he faced from 13 judges, and the simplest examples with which he made the most enviable doctrine of the world, which is the pride of India and the envy of many countries, and innumerable countries across the world have copied it, the basic structure doctrine. But I will tell you an anecdote of about 3 years ago when a top industrialist of this country came with his son to my house. and said, भाई इसके दिमाग में कुछ अकल डालिए, ये इंडस्ट्री छोड़कर लॉ करना चाहता है. Again, I will not take names. He brought his son along. The son talked to me, and I told him, "Your father is wrong. You are right." And I told his father that he will spend his entire his life in the rat race. Please allow him to pursue his dreams now. And today he's studying at top US universities and he's studying law. His father is wondering what he'll do with his big industry. The third, very important, is that when we entered, there were very few ladies in the profession, and even fewer doing well. There is an explosion today, and except the very, very top, take some time to gravitate there. Leaving aside that one slot, ladies are everywhere and doing remarkably well. Any lady who has hesitation about the profession in any form should dispel any doubts, because they are doing superbly well at every level, in every form, in every varied methodology of practice. So these are three very, very creditable achievements for the profession, which attract young minds today. So let me turn to this phrase, art of advocacy. Advocacy, loosely defined, is the ability to communicate by speech. Something which sounds very simple, but it encompasses a lot of other elements. It involves putting across a point in a pithy, a succinct, a relevant, neat, and in a generally overall pleasing manner. As the French philosopher Montesquieu said, and I quote, "Every man may speak truly, but to speak methodically, prudently, and fully is a talent which few can have." And that is the heart of the art of advocacy. It is, of course, important to remember that law, as in life, is fortunately large shades of grey. It is not black and white. If it was black and white, lawyers and indeed judges would be superfluous. It is because it is not capable of a mere binary black and white solution that creative interpretation in grey areas is what lawyers should search for and what lawyers are existing for. And the best description oblique definition of this distinction is found by the great jurisprudence expert, the famous Harvard professor Dean Roscoe Pound, who headed as the dean, the law faculty of Harvard. Roscoe Pound said that there are three distinctions between a business and a profession, and each of them is important to set your various traits of art of advocacy. One, he said, there are three ideas involved in a profession which are not intrinsic or essential to a business. The first, he said, is the idea of organization. Organization means that professions, of course it may not be true in a literal sense now, but professions are supposed to emerge out of an organized guild, a community. How true that is clear that when you think of something as far apart as the Inns of Court of England, they were guilds. They were a master with disciples around them. That's how the inns arose in the 12th, 13th, and even earlier centuries. The Gurukul was not much different. They were guilds. They're not business. This is a teaching of a craft. That's the same with medicine. It's the same with law. In a sense, it's the same with architecture. And so many more. So, a community surrounded by common ideas, learning at the feet of a master, so it's an organized. A business is not necessarily an organized community. Everybody and anybody can be in business. It is not limited by boundaries, by ideas, by ethics, by rules. The second, Roscoe Pound said, was learning. You cannot be a lawyer without a degree, and you cannot be a doctor without a much longer degree. You can certainly, and this is not to belittle business or other forms of activity, by your sheer entrepreneurial skills, without any learning, you can be a businessman. So the idea of learning is behind a profession, which a young student should never forget. But he said, Roscoe Pound himself said, that above all these two, the third is the most important. And that, he said, is a spirit of public service. Now this might sound very, very cynical, it may sound very, very academic and artificial, but it's true. A spirit of public service is what underlies a profession as opposed to a business or, for that matter, other activities. A spirit of public service means that all professions, if you look very closely in their historical origins, came about because they were supposed to do a particular kind of service to humanity. And that is why the saying grew that a lawyer or a doctor does not serve to earn. He is paid so that he may serve. Because you would not have dispute resolution in society without lawyers, just like you would not have ailment resolution in society, a sick society without doctors. At the base of these activities, and in other professions also, not only these two, there is an element of public service. Now it is true that, these are large businesses also now, and certain structures within law are very business-like and commercial, as it is within medicine. It is not to decry them or diminish or belittle them, but it is to say that the idea at the base should not be forgotten, namely the idea that you are ultimately doing something of a public service to society, even though you are being paid for that. And I think it applies more than any subcategory of law to the litigating counsel, more than any of the other known categories. So friends, these are the three constructs within which you have to learn the art of advocacy.